I laugh very loudly, and I make some strange noises sometimes. But we found Gwendolyn, and her two little cubs just suckling about. No sign of Djuma, but she could be on the other side with Ribbon. I haven't actually gone round at all to have a look. We just arrived here, and it was very sweet, and this is my first time to see the new little cubs. So how cool is that? But they're not as playful as what I would have liked them to be, but that's okay. You can see that they're sitting in the sun, and they're also suckling away. They must be very hungry little hyena cubs. And at this age, it doesn't matter what animal you are, but it is important that you get food regularly so that you can develop properly and as quick as possible. You don't want to stay too little out in the big bad African bush for too long. You want to grow up so that you can face all the dangerous things that are out here. But they are not just shy of that, and they've started to get their shaggy coats. At this age, they just look strange. But they are very sweet, though. Now, Shamson, you're wondering if the holes in the dens, in the hyena dens, of course, are very deep. I've actually never been inside one, and the odd sort of termite mound I have gone to inspect is either caved in, which is maybe one of the reasons why they didn't use it anymore, but I can only imagine that they must be particularly deep, because if you remember that one on Philemon's cut line, just off Philemon's cut line, we could actually see quite a fair way into the hole, and we still wouldn't see those little ones. I have actually gone to have a look around there, but again, it looks like it had caved in slightly, but perhaps when it was active, it will go right in. Sometimes these sort of network systems, these tunnels, go right through and out the other side. So yes, and the adults will go in every now and then too. It depends. Again, we see them spending more time on the outside, but sometimes they sit with their bodies sort of half in the hole, so they have to be big enough. And remember, things like warthogs also utilize burrows like this. And a warthog is not a small animal, especially when there's 8 of you living in one hole. So I'm sure that between the hyenas and the warthogs, they do excavate the inside out so that they can still move around comfortably. Right, we're going to go across to Byron though, but we'll see you back here shortly. We're still at a very peaceful setting at the hyena den on Djuma, and it's fairly quiet around here. What we will probably do just now is we'll probably do a quick lap around the den, see if anything else is happening on the other side. I do miss young Djuma, though I've started seeing sub-adult hyena tracks sort of going up and down the road, and Tristan said that he also saw them. I don't know if he actually saw Djuma running around, but I think she's getting to the point now where she's also going to leave the den and start spending some time with the adults. I haven't seen her in such a long time. I wouldn't even be able to tell you how big she is now. The last time I saw her was a few weeks ago, and she's definitely much larger than these two. Now, Sabi, you're wondering, how do the animals change the pattern and the color of their fur, like the hyenas and other animals, of course, as they sort of grow up? I suppose that's just in their genetics, really. It's not uncommon to see when animals are first born, that'll be a completely different color to the adults, and that's normally for protection in terms of camouflage. So, for example, if we look at the herbivores, look at wildebeest, the youngsters are almost I don't even know what color to call it, but they're a lightish brown. They're not quite as dark as the adults, and that's because when they sit down on the ground, often in sandy patches, they then just look like the sand. The same thing goes, normally they are lighter, and they start, like I said, they start to get darker as they get older. However, it seems to be the opposite way around with the hyena. They start off nice and dark, and then they start to develop the spots, and then all that lighter color fur, that tan colored fur comes through. And I don't know know how they do it, but like I said, it'll just be genetics. It's just one of those things. They lose that fluffy coat, or youngster zebras do exactly the same thing. Look at lions, for example. They're covered with tiny little spots all over them to help them blend into the vegetation, and they start to lose that after a few years, or sometimes they keep those spots actually for their whole life. They're just very faint. So I think it depends on the sort of species. If we look at birds, some of the raptors taking many years to develop. They also don't really look like the adults too much. They're more tawny again. So maybe for birds, that will be a good thing to not have the same color as the adult from the get-go, because you'll be able to hang around within territories a little bit longer, because adults won't view you as a threat when it comes to sort of mating. But of course, this is maybe just specifically to birds. And it will change. But I think these hyena cubs, I don't think they're going to get up to too much. I'm sure they were a bit playful a little bit earlier when Mom came back to the den, but now they've been suckling for a while. That belly is going to expand. It's going to be full of milk. Those eyes will grow heavy, especially in this warm morning sun. And they'll probably go back to sleep unless Gwen gets up and runs away. But she's constantly looking around, just making sure that no one is also sneaking up to her. Remember, this isn't the main matriarchal den. We don't know where it is. I have a suspicion that it could be on Little Gowrie somewhere, because we're constantly seeing hyenas going back that side, and we're often seeing a lot of male hyenas running back there and around. And then, of course, we see those massive female hyena tracks also going down that way too. So there might be somewhere that side. Or they could just be on Djuma as well, just maybe further to the south. But we haven't come across that den. But as we start doing more bushwalks, we'll start exploring more on foot again, and we'll be able to find these old dens. Isn't that such a sweet little sight, though? They really are amazing, misunderstood creatures. And that's what I love about the show, is that obviously we try and get rid of the myths that have been created by movies, and then give animals bad names, for instance, just as the Lion King did with the hyenas. Although Gwen sort of resembles, please help me, what were the hyenas' names again? Can anyone remember? I can't remember the names. What is the goofy one? For the life of me, I can't remember. Not Missy. I just know who played the parts. I know that Whoopi Goldberg was the main hyena, and then I can't remember the other two. But the sort of very goofy one, whatever that one's name is, reminds me of Gwen, actually. So maybe they weren't sort of painting hyenas too far from the truth. Well, in the case of that goofy-looking hyena, shame poor Gwen with her saggy lip and her one eye doesn't seem to be quite open all the time. She's a bit quite intimidating when you stare at her at night and she's sort of, slobbering. She definitely looks... Oh, yes, she definitely looks like a feral thing. Ed was the goofy one, so thank you so much for whoever gave that answer through. Ed, fantastic. Kirsten in FC from Mara. Of course, Kirsten would know. Although I think we all know those Lion King songs. But because they're not getting up to too much, let's use this opportunity. Let's do a quick little survey around the den. So we'll just reverse out of here. Actually, we'll do it opposite. We'll see if we can do it the other way around. If I can remember. Here's the pathway. Now I just need to go into low range. They've sat up a little bit, so let's go around. I promise you we'll come back. Got my water bottle. We'll go through here because I'll be very, very excited if I can see. There she is. She's there. She's hiding. She's sneaky. She's just sitting there quietly with ribbon. I'll show you now. I'm just trying to position the car a bit easier for Senzo. It's not really easy, a great view, unfortunately. But we'll see if we can show you. They're just sitting on the other side of the den. You can look in there. I think there's two hyenas there. Yeah, there we go. There's Ribbon and Tima with her eyes closed, suckling away. They can suckle for quite a long time. It's actually, it's interesting how hyena youngsters will actually drink milk for longer than lions and leopards, for example. So they're normally only getting weaned anywhere between... I suppose, again, it varies between, a year and 16 months, around there, which is quite cool. So that's what she's doing. And now the little ones have actually woken up too. And we've got a gap to see them. They're starting to climb about. There we go. Get off of my head, says Mom. That's so sweet. Perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps all the fat and protein that it is in Mom's milk is going to give them a sugar rush now, or the equivalent of a sugar rush. Now, Starlight, you were wondering, is there any animal, any mammal that can have more youngsters than they do mammary glands? I'm not sure. I don't think so. No, and not that I've ever seen. But again, I stand under correction. I don't really know the answer to that, and I don't want to busk. But I don't think that would be a very clever thing. Of course, we might find that if there aren't enough teats, that obviously one is not going to really maybe make it or be the runt. I don't know what it's like with dogs. I mean, with wild dogs, though, you think about it, wild dogs can have like. What we were talking about the record the other day, and we think we said something about it being 22 or 23 dog puppies being born, which is a huge amount of wild dog puppies. And I don't think wild dogs have got that many mammary glands. But if you don't know how many mammary glands a wild dog... Oh, there we go. Well, then, there we go. So I've answered my own question now, haven't I, by saying that. Thank you, Alice, for pointing that out. Here I am stating, yes, wild dogs have lots of puppies, and I don't think they have that many mammary glands. So there we go. Perhaps that's the exception to the rule, Starlight. I'm trying to think, actually, I don't know how many, like I said, how many mammary glands a wild dog has. What, maybe let's go guess. 12. I don't know. 8. 10. Someone can look it up in a book. Or I will try and look it up in a book and have a look now, but it will take me a while to scroll through the many pages. But we'll sit with these hyenas for a little bit longer and see what they get up to. It looks like it might get quite exciting. So off we go to Byron, who's doing some birding. Away from the den, but hopefully in the next few weeks you'll start to see them get a bit more adventurous. But as I talk, that little one will occasionally look towards us and sort of stare, wondering what on earth we are. Sort of adventure they've got ahead of meeting the cars, meeting all the sights and smells that they're going to get, and then they're going to learn to love tires, I suppose, like young Djuma seems to enjoy, and like every other hyena in the whole wide world seems to enjoy too. Isn't that beautiful? And that's a very cozy spot there. Obviously not for Mom, I don't think, though. I think it must be a little bit annoying. Little one just flops in between the neck crease, keeping nice and warm, not only getting the heat from Mom, but also getting the heat from the sun. Oh, I just want to give you some loves. That's all. That's all I want to do. Hello, Mom. It's really nice to watch hyenas being affectionate, although I'm sure they're just gnawing away, chewing a bit and annoying Mom most of the time, but lions and leopards do exactly that. But that is so sweet. I just want your attention. I just want to be on top of you all the time. And now, because they're such social animals too, of course, that sort of touch, well, especially touching one another, is very important for strengthening the bond between the various animals out here. We see it with birds, we see it with impala, kudu, cheetah, hyena, leopards, lions, you name it. You see the babblers have caught those youngsters' attention. I'm surprised. It's actually quite nice to see, because I know when I watched when Tara was sort of looking, or managed to find these little ones, every sort of sight and sound gave them a fright, and they would dart off down into the dark tunnel into the termite mound. Isn't that cool? And other little one going in for a suckle, yet not quite finished with breakfast. And I'm sure that Gwen is going to get a little bit hot in that spot, so she might move down eventually. Once those little ones have had enough to eat, she might send them back into the burrow, and then she'll also just rest up in the shade. But it's been a very exciting morning, don't you think? We've seen so many different things today. We've been very, very lucky. From Byron Butch the birder, showing us all our feathered friends, and Brent showing us, well, a variety of different species today, and me just talking a whole lot of nonsense, but it has been amazing, and I'm just glad that it is warm today. That is definitely the absolute best. But should we take a look at those little hyenas one last time before drive finishes? But remember, we're not going anywhere. We'll be around this afternoon for the sunset safari, so please join us then. From all of us at Wild Earth, we hope you have a wonderful day or night, and we'll